Hi, I'm Mark Trebor and welcome to another Talk Photography. And today we're going to be joined by the amazing Bob Trebor, and we're going to be seeing some fantastic fine art nudes. It's under the disguise of shapes and shadows and studio magic, and I'm sure when you start to see the images, you'll know exactly that it's going to follow that kind of line. You can just see Bob there in the background anyway. Hi, Bob. Before we get to talk to Bob, I got to do the plug. You know how it works. Basically, the Photographer Academy is an online resource for photographers. We're now in our 15th, 16th year, as it were. There are some films that you can watch on the outside, but really we're a membership site. If you want to have a little scroll through the site, you'll basically see what we have. If you're a member from the front screen, you'll just click straight onto the Academy member option here, and you'll go straight there. Otherwise, if you'd like to actually know more about the Academy and basically how much it costs, you can click onto the join now from pretty much anywhere on the website, and you'll see all the benefits that you get. It's just not the new content, including all our talk photography, that basically goes live each week, but there's also loads of assets to do with smart objects and actions and Photoshop and posing apps and lighting apps. I'll stop there. Okay, so you get the kind of thing with it. 100 quid a year. Basically, you can watch and download pretty much all of the content that we've created. Obviously, we do some edit and kind of move some stuff, but basically that's what you get today. So without all that done, we're back to the main event, which is going to chat with Bob about 8 of his amazing photographs and things ready. So Bob, I can see you there, obviously.
Hi,
how are you?
hello.
Thanks for joining me live.
It's fine.
Tell us a little bit about you before we get going, can we? And I suppose how you got around to choosing the 8 images tonight.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, my name's Bob Pursley. I use Trebor as my sort of photo name. Obviously, when I was at work, I was a bit concerned about some of the images and people seeing them, so I used Trebor, which actually is Robert backwards. Yeah. I mean, I started photography many years ago when my dad bought a camera for me. Well, in fact, he gave me one of his old cameras, which was an Agfa, and I started taking photographs when I was about 12, 13 years old. Got really interested into it, especially with some trick photography when you're a young kid trying to sort of create the images where someone's standing on your hand and things like that. And eventually I started to join the camera club at school, started to do my own developing and printing. And then sort of almost continually been taking photographs, quite to start with, really more of a sort of a record of at school, then going into university and things. So I've got this amazing record of my life and my friends over the years. But as I sort of progressed, I started to want to explore different aspects of photography, and really did quite a lot of infrared photography and things like that in the old film days. And then slowly sort of got to the stage where I could afford a decent camera, and then started to look at doing model photography, and again fine art nudes, and primarily working in a studio is my best basis, but I do work outdoors as well. So when I came to selecting 8 images, it was quite a tricky thing to do. Obviously got quite a few images on various websites and things, but I don't tend to take a lot of photographs in a session. In a 4-hour studio session, I might take 200 or 300 images, but I'm only looking for maybe six images that I feel warrant me working on to actually create the final output. So I sort of see it as 3 sort of things really. It's like the creative ideas of what I want to shoot, the actual photography of actually doing it, and then the post-production to actually finally create the image in the way exactly how I want it to be as I originally saw it in my mind. So again, just working through those criteria and then slowly whittling down the images to 8 I feel would represent shapes and shadows working in the studio.
Excellent. What led you specifically to focus in on the fine art nude?
I think I attended a couple of workshops with Trevor Yerbury and Faye Yerbury on early doors, and I'd seen a lot of his images in books and things, and I just sort of got really impressed with just the skill and how the images looked, and working with light and the shapes and the context of some of his images. So it just sort of triggered me to saying, you know what, I'd really like to have a go at this. So I then started getting into a few workshops is the best way, I think, for a lot of people, is if you attend a workshop with somebody who's reasonably renowned in terms of their photography, and if it's fine art nude, then obviously a fine art nude photographer, and then just learning the process and then trying to build off that process to start creating some of your own images.
Very good. I'm not sure if you heard the sad news, but recently Faye passed away, in fact.
Yes, I know that. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and my heart and all my love, Debbie and I kind of go out to Trevor.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I've met her a number of times. I went to Venice with Trevor and Faye, so I knew her reasonably well. So yes, it was a very, very sad news to hear.
Yeah, very sad. Okay, so what does art nude mean personally to you and artistically, I suppose?
I think it's one of those sort of tricky subjects, I guess. For some people might sort of say, well, you're just photographing naked women, etc. Although I have shot some men as well. But for me, it's like, I think the female form is very beautiful, and trying to put that in a sort of context of either backgrounds or lighting or some fabrics and things such as that to try and enhance the image or the shapes or the forms. So it's very much around going to art exhibitions, going to galleries, and you see beautiful art nude structures and statues, bronzes and things such as that, and I just get taken by that, seeing the what a female form can do in terms of their shapes and their flexibility and the poses they can take, especially ballet dances. It's another area where dance and movement, shapes and shadows is an area that I just feel quite passionate about.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. How have you seen your, because obviously we've only got 8 images tonight.
Yeah.
But how has your work evolved over the years, especially in studio?
Well, I think it's moved on quite a lot since I started. Although some of the ideas that I had, 8 or 9 years and 10 years ago, I think were good ideas. But my ability to execute it then versus now is probably quite a lot different. Certainly in terms of understanding much more about light and shadows and how to position lighting and what sort of other effects you can get using flags and things such as that to try and shadow and shutter light, etc. So I think my concepts and ideas, I've actually got a book of drawings that I use, and I tend to sketch out the shapes and images I want to try and capture with the model, and I discuss that with the model as I start off the whole process. So I think that my ideas have been good, if you like, because I think creative idea is just a creative idea, but my ability to execute it, certainly probably over the last 4 or 5 years, has moved on. And some of that is due to my ability to understand much more about Photoshop as well and Lightroom. And as you practice working through Photoshop and Lightroom, you then start to see some other options that before, you may not have been able to use.
Yeah, very good. Look, let's get into the first image. And it's amazing shape. So I suppose I usually ask the fine art photographers, what are you looking for in a model? But I suppose the first thing for you is athleticism.
Yes.
And basically, the world of dance and ballet really actually brings that type of model anyway, yeah?
Yes, it does. And I mean, models having a degree of flexibility, allows them to create certain shapes that not everybody can do. And therefore, straight away, you're into a not completely unique position, but you're sort of creating a sort of small selected area that you're working within. This is really, again, one of my passions is around bronzes and art nude bronzes, whether it's Lorenzo or Chypris, who I'd never be able to afford to buy one. But I have 2 or 3 Lorenzo bronzes they're primarily dancers and taking shapes and with either things like hoop or just dancing as ballet dancers. So my inspiration has really come from that. And this is a model who herself is actually as a commercial photographer, but I took this about 4 or 5 years ago. And in fact, I've just done another recent shoot with that as it happens. But I just wanted to try and say that if somebody wanted to take that and make a bronze of that, I'd be very happy, to have a bronze of that photograph, to be honest.
I'm not sure if you heard of. I was just looking up his name because I always call him McDonald, and I always get confused with him. Have you heard of Richard McDonald? He's got a gallery in Vegas,
Right.
and he shoots a lot of this. Sorry, he basically sculpts a lot of the Cirque du Soleil.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've
Uh,
seen that a few times.
yeah, absolutely amazing sculptures.
Yeah.
As well. I'm
Yeah.
lucky enough to be to Vegas quite a few times, and I always disappear into his gallery and things. Really,
Yeah.
again, very expensive, but that's
Yeah. There's another artist, Michael Talbot, who has got some amazing bronzes. Again, a very unique way he creates the bronze. So that's one for you to have a look at, Mark. Actually, Michael Talbot.
Yeah.
Yes, this is trying to on opposing box, trying to get the light right. So again, you can emphasize the physique, the ribs, sort of a strong head, good neckline running through the body, and then just using a hula hoop that I bought off eBay or whatever, and sprayed it silver. But yeah, I mean, I think to me that image, if someone could cast a bronze of that, I'd be very happy to have one.
I bet you could almost turn that into bronze with ChatGPT nowadays. You know?
You probably could do, actually, yes.
It would reject the bust and nipple. It would go, no, I'm not touching that one.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah.
But yeah, lovely. I mean, you couldn't even put that into Photoshop and ask it to actually make it into a bronze because of the nipple. It would just, the AI would go, I'm not going there, boys and girls. But very good. So lighting wise, what's your kind of your kind of the main positioning of light for this kind of image?
This is shot on an infinity curve. So I use a studio in Northampton called Aura Photographic Studios, which has a very, very large, it's a massive big studio anyways, part of the old ordnance warehouses and things which were used in the Napoleonic War and things. So they're all listed buildings, but massive natural light, which I don't use very much, but they've got an enormous infinity curve. And this is opposing box turned at an angle. I like the model to have a very slight sheen on the skin, which is some stuff I've got from Australia, which is like a sunscreen block, which they'll just use, but I don't want it like overly glistening, but just enough to help emphasize some of the muscles and some of the shadows. And this will be a very large octobox, gridded octobox, quite high. It's slightly probably to the right, but and I tend to use a tripod when I take my photographs in studio, so I can set up and then talk to the model and then go back to the camera, and everything's still set exactly the same. So in effect, it saves me time if I want the model to change her pose a little bit. So this is a very high octobox on a boom, and coming down probably just in front of the model, and it's a white infinity curve. Obviously, because it's quite a large infinity curve, I can bring the box fairly forwards, and you then get the darkness coming behind it.
Very good. The body does have a real metallic sheen. In fact, you were saying about kind of what you use on her and things. Really, it's really quite good with it. What's you obviously we've got hair up here. Would you always go for hair up as a rule with ballet?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Mark, because yeah, I mean, ballet normally, if you go and see a ballet or whatever, they're all hair up or in buns and things. So some of it, I think, it stops any distraction from the female form, the actual the body itself. I have shot some with hair down, depending on the context, but certainly for a sort of a bronze sort of style image like this, or a Lorenzo style image like this, I feel the hair down wouldn't add anything to the image, and actually becomes a little bit of distraction. And from a sort of watching the line through the right arm coming back down through the back and then through the legs, there's no distraction of hair sort of blocking any of that.
Very good. And as far as your post-production is concerned, is it quite simple for you? Lightroom, quick little tweaks, hours and hours?
No, I don't spend hours and hours, but I have a workflow. I start off in Lightroom. I make various adjustments in Lightroom, and then move it into Photoshop, and then work primarily in Photoshop. And I've got a few sort of settings and fixes that I use to try and make sure the skin looks good, and that I get the light and the darkness correct. I've got a good workflow now, so I just processed an image this afternoon. It's probably taken me about 25 minutes, because sometimes with Photoshop, it's like, when do you stop? And you have sort of various options. So I've become quite good at training myself to say, right, that's fine, stop now, don't keep on fiddling, that's good. So as I said to you before earlier on, it's almost like the concepts. What's the concept I have in my mind? Sketch it out. Find a model I think would be suitable for it in terms of their ability, in terms of its flexibility requirements or dance or whatever. Capture the image or images as much as I can do, and then in post-production spend half an hour or so, and some I've spent an hour. It depends on things like the model's skin and blemishes and various things such as that.
When you're looking for a muse or a model, would you go, because this girl's quite got a fuller bust?
Yes.
And for a dancer, that's quite unusual, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Would you look at certain kind of aesthetics as far as the body is concerned, or are you really looking just at the flexibility?
Yeah, I think I say this model, I'd seen some images and just thought she would be very good in terms, because she does roller skating. She is quite flexible in terms of bending on the back and things like that. So and I think it sort of fits with this context. But probably the majority of ballet dancers I shoot and art nude tend to be sort of medium, small busted, but that's not a particular issue for me. So, for instance, in a non-ridge you'll come to this evening, that I wanted someone who has complete contortion ability. And again, she has somebody who's a fairly small bust, but it almost becomes irrelevant to me, because what I'm trying to capture is what she can do with her body as against her proportions.
Very good. Okay, let's go to the next image, shall we?
Yeah.
What do you most what do you love most about working in studio versus location? Because for a lot of fine art photographers, they really do opt for location before anything else, isn't it?
Yes, and I think if you can find some good locations, certainly Trevor and Faye had a number of great locations they could get access to, and there are some nice external buildings. But again, I'd want some sort of something in the building that you're going to use, whether it's pillars or broken down ruins or something, to add some context to the image. In the studio, because I've got complete control on light, it's a bit more of a comfort blanket to me than when you're outdoors, when in fact you're at the mercy of light to a degree. And yes, you can have portable lights with you. You can use reflectors and things such as that, and I have used that. But I just feel a little bit more comfortable in the studio as my sort of first point of call. In this image, it's the same model, in fact, but and this is really showing, her figure, and it is around her figure, I guess. But the point really being is just the one eye, and the way she's got her hands entwined, so and a really nice curve on through her arms, down her back, onto her backside. But it's just one where you can't help but not look at her face as much as anything else, because there's this sort of, she's just got one eye looking at you because it's blocked by the arm. And again, with the light falling on her rib and her rib cage, you just get, for me anyway, you get the real sort of figure on display.
Very good. Do you prefer natural light or artificial light, or a combination in shoots? So I know we're in studio today, so we're talking about strobe.
Yeah.
But if you had a choice out of all things, would you opt for natural or still stick at strobe?
I think I'd go for studio strobe as my first port of call, because I've spent most of my time working in studios. I have shot outdoors, art nude outdoors, and for me it's finding locations. So quite often you sort of see a location, you think, oh, if I had a model with me now, I could, I know exactly what to do. But it's like you want this sort of a model who's close at hand or whatever. And I've planned some shoots outdoors where the weather then turns bad, and then all your plans are put to one side. So it's more of a sort of safety, and also feeling that you should have it all in your control, whereas outdoor shoots quite often can be at the mercy of the weather. But I've used natural light in this studio as well, because I say it's Aura Photographic based in Weedon near Northampton. It's got a lot of natural lights and a beautiful dance floor as well. So I have used natural light there as well. But again, the same sort of thing, just trying to use it in a way to be able to show definition on the body, whether it's through the rib cage or the arms or the muscles. To try and, because I think that for me that almost sort of enhances the image.
Yeah, lovely, very good, great model too there. So our next image with the fans.
Yeah, this is a ballerina a professional ballerina who, in fact, I'm shooting in a few weeks' time, but not art nude, as that sort of a phase that's gone through her life now. But I'm still going to shoot her as a ballet dancer, because again, I've got some ideas and concepts around this. But again, this sort of movements. She's jumped, she's moving, trying to get the fans to be almost vertical as against twisting away, so one fan looks smaller than the other.
Yeah.
And then almost the way she's looking, so there's no force in her face in terms of having to create this pose. Her face looks very at ease as against sort of strained or gasping to jump up and get that pose. So again, for me, this is one that again, just a simple use of a fan or two fans can enhance the image, rather than just seeing somebody jumping, a ballerina jumping naked. It just sort of it connects it to the Art Deco sort of era, in terms of that sort of understanding about dance movement in that sort of situation.
I was going to ask you about how important is set design and backgrounds and else, but obviously you don't usually use anything to do with that. It's more props, isn't it, really?
Yes, it's more props. Sometimes I'll shoot on the floor, depending on what I'm looking the model to do, because sometimes posing boxes are not big enough. I tend to I've got a lot of equipment of my own, hoops, I've got rings, I've got various assortments of small things to make the image a little bit different or to enhance it. I've got a number of fans, I've got various sort of vole, I've got some ballerina outfits, I've got 2 tutus and things such as that. So not much around, because I like a lot of my images are either dark background or light background. If I feel it's relevant to images, and some of those are my images which aren't new but are sort of partially dressed, there might be some sort of something within the background because that adds context to it. So I took a model in a geisha outfit, but I then had 2 oriental jars slightly in the background, which was slightly visible but not too strong, just to try and set the context of a Japanese geisha within sort of Japanese large pots at the back there. But yes, it's primarily props that I use: rings, hoop, trapeze. I've used silks, and I've also made 1 or 2 things of myself for models to use. But this lighting is different to the previous lighting. This actually is a setup I've used quite often, which is again 2 large gridded soft boxes, tall soft boxes, but the light is blocked, controlled by flags. So a tall gridded softbox, 2 white flags either side to limit the light and not to let it spill onto the back drop of the infinity curve.
Yep.
And then the challenge then becomes getting the model to be in a situation where that light and the way that she's moving doesn't block out too much of her shape, because there's a fan in the way, she's got her arm up and it's blocking some of the light to her face, etc. So this is more difficult to get the model to get the right position for you to get, again, the muscles being shown on the legs, the muscles being shown through the arm, and just enough light on the face where you don't get like a black line down the middle of the face because it's exactly light on light, but she's got her head turned a little bit to make sure that I don't get that happening. So all of these smaller adjustments, I'll take an image and then I'll go and talk to the model and say, look, can you just move your head a little bit to the left or look down a little bit, because at the moment I've got a black line coming straight down your nose because of the 2 lights coming straightly onto it. So, and again, because I've used a tripod, then I can go back to my camera, everything's set exactly as it should be. she dances. She'll jump off a spot marked on the floor. So it's all set up to try and give me the best chance of getting a good shot.
Very good. Talk us a bit about camera kit for a minute. What's your kind of setup at present?
I've sold my medium format camera. Wasn't using it. I've got a Nikon D750. I tend to use a 20-70mm zoom. I've got an 85mm fixed lens. I've got a 50mm fixed lens. I've got a 70-200mm as well, which I do use sometimes in the studio. So that's old kit. It's still got mirrors, although I hear some people are going back to mirrors now. I don't know, but basically it works fine for me. The image size is great. I mean, I've had pictures. I've got a picture on which I think you've got in your 8 sets, which is on my wall. That's probably a meter tall in terms of its. So in terms of the number of pixels to be able to get an enlargement or a print, it's not a problem. Although obviously some people sort of spit at you because you've got a Nikon as against the Canon or whatever. But I've always been Nikon, and I've just stuck with it really. But maybe one day I might go to the Zs. I don't know yet.
It's just a camera.
You're quite right, Mark. You are. And at the end of the day, I mean, the lenses I got are all good lenses. I mean, they weren't cheap, and it's certainly on prime lenses. When I do some portraits, so quite often I'll do some portraits to help ease into the session, just to sort of get moving and get a little bit comfortable, etc., and create some rapport with the model. But I'll quite often use an 85mm fixed prime lens for that. So all my lenses are of good quality. I wouldn't get much from my D750 body, but I'd hopefully get some money for my lenses. I've also got a Lens Baby as well, which I use for some portraiture. Lens Baby Composer Pro. But that's quite tricky.
I never played with one of those at all, funny enough. Recently, speaking about cameras, I recently was doing some training in a professional portrait studio. And, during the day, I jump in and I shoot the whole shoot for them, session, just to show how I would do it.
Yes.
Anyway, when I was getting my camera out the bag ready for the client to arrive in the house, one of the photographers went around and said, Mark, it's got Noah on the bottom. I knew exactly what he meant straight away because I used the same I used the same terminology with it. But I said, yeah, but I'm still going to shoot better than you are. So our next image.
Yeah. This again, this is another model. In fact, I shot with Richard Egan and this model last week in Beltcraft in London with another model. So this is Beth Kate, very, very good model, good ballerina as well. But this is, again, an image, when I was talking to you earlier before about when I was very young about trick photography and almost sort of trying to boggle the mind a little bit by what you see. Yeah. So this actually is, her hands are actually bound by a latex band there. But this was something that we talked about, and I had an assistant to help in terms of getting this set up. But she was very, very good in terms of, again, a lot of trust in this in regard to, she's immobile in effect, and therefore, it could be, quite dangerous. But I think you can see from the lighting that, again, this is the same lighting as I used in the previous image, which again is these two long gridded soft boxes with two flats to try and control the light. But this is one of those images where I don't discuss and tell people how it's being done, but the image, is something where you just look at this and say, well, how did that happen? How did he do that? Which is really, quite often what I want some people to look at my images and sort of wonder how you managed to do that. But yes, this was taken quite a few years ago, but she was very willing, and obviously could create that pose in terms of on point with her hands tucked behind her legs.
And I bet when she saw the image, I bet she's going, I could have pushed the vertical more. A dancer is the worst critic in the world. You are absolutely right. But there's a balance in terms of balance and abilities and all the rest of it, and how
you know, you've got to, you're right in what you say. And I've had it where I've taken a shot and say, oh, I'm happy with that. And she'll come and look at it behind, you know, back her camera and say, no, I can do better than that. You know, I'm a little bit off. My left hand's not this where it should be. So they are very much perfectionists. But yeah, again, hair in a bun, there's no distraction. If the hair was all loose, it'd be hanging down and it wouldn't do anything for the image. But yes, this is an idea I had. Beautiful. And talked it through with the model, and I said, if you don't want to do this, you know, because obviously there's a degree of trust in what you're doing here, and you know, if you're not happy to do it, as I do with all my models, there's something that you're not happy to do, or if I show you some drawing or sketch, you say I can't do that, that's fine, we'll move on to another one. You know, and I'll just store it then, and maybe in 6 months time or a year, someone might find a model who can do that pose. So.
You mentioned in somewhere I read about you like to create images that stimulate the mind. What makes an image do that for you? So not so much your own image, but when you look at other photographers' work and things, really, is there something that stimulates you?
I think it's probably the light and shadow. So you know, if I see an image, it's almost got to hit you straight away. It's like wow, it's for me, it's normally around, you know, how's the light? What's the light like? You know, and what's the shadows? How's that being set up or controlled? And then you can start to go into the image and start looking and studying the image itself. There's got to be something in the image. To me, the image has got to be saying something to me, or I've got to put an interpretation on the image that suits me. But I think, wow, that really stands out and hits me. But the first thing normally is, you know, what's the lighting like? What's the shadows? That's why quite often, you know, I like monochrome. But yeah, I think for me, that's the thing which I first sort of look at an image.
Very good. Before we start, amazing photograph. This is by the way, I'm not sure who to reward, you or the model. Let's reward you and the model in the same breath. But before we get to it, how do you balance the pre-visualized idea with a more spontaneous twist in creativity and things, really? How do you manage that?
Yeah, it's a good question, Mark. But I mean, basically, I'll start off the model and say, like, I'll sketch out the pose and we'll talk through it. And she'll have a go. Sometimes she'll have a go fully dressed because I just want to see whether she can do it and whether she feels comfortable. So quite often, some of the practice might be fully clothed just to sort of make sure it all works, and also gives me a chance to check my lighting. But you know, then really it's on this situation, you can't really build off it, but quite often, certainly on a box and things like that, the model will create the pose I'm looking for, but then I'll say, okay, let's do some more, and then she'll start to add inputs in terms of, well, what about if I do this, or I could try this, or, and then she goes, so you quite often end up building on the original idea, and sometimes you end up with something better. You know, and I'm very happy for that to happen. So I welcome the input from models who suddenly say, well, actually, if I just move my leg here, or if I did this, you know, it's like, fine, let's have a go. And, you know, we'll take some more images. And sometimes I see the image that I've just photographed where the models had input, and I say, you know what, that's really good. But actually, if you could just move that a little bit to the left or whatever. So it's a bit of a building process. So as much as on this one, it was almost like there's nothing else you can do in terms of building off that, really, in my view. But a lot of my images, and even that first image, or the image with the fans jumping, I've got lots of images where the models try different things with the fans. And then at the end of the day, I work through and pick out the one that I'm looking at. And again, I select, my process is very much around, leave it for a day, go back and look at them, score them with stars, leave it another day, go back without looking at the all scoring, rescore it, and then see if there's any common ones where you've scored it maybe 3 or 4 stars and it comes up again as 3 or 4 stars. And you'll be surprised sometimes of day one you think it's a really good image, and then by day 2 or 3 you don't score it as highly because actually you've seen another image which is better. But yeah, I encourage the models to build on the ideas, and some models are very good at being creative, and other models are, you know, a little bit more cautious about you know, having a go themselves.
Talk about this image for me anyway. How the hell did you get in that pose? Did you?
Well, this is a contortionist. So and I've shot with a probably two or three times, I think now. Her name's Supple Suki, but she has an amazing ability to bend and shape her body. So I said, could you do this? So again, we had to go without the ring, and just in clothes and just seeing what it all works. And again, I had an assistant there from a point of view of if there was any danger of her falling.
Yeah.
He said, okay, let's have a go with the hoop. And the hoop is between her hands and between her feet. And I've got quite a few images where the hoop's touching her body, just at the top where her tummy is. We were just talking and do 2 or 3 shots and stop and have a rest, look at the images. And I say, it'd be great if we could just get that hoop just to come off your tummy so I could get clarity between the hoop and your body. So we had another couple of goes, and finally she managed to do it. But the whole concept is around this amazing flexibility that she has to be able to create a pose like that and to balance like that on a box, and then to add on to it having a ring to try to keep it vertical so it doesn't start to twist out and becomes an oval rugby ball, and then just to try and get it to free itself off the top of her tummy, which she did by dropping herself a little bit lower. So it was resting on her tummy, and it's like 3, 2, 1, and she just dropped a fraction and still holding the hoop between her 2 hands to keep it vertical. And that's how we actually ended up creating the image. But yeah, that was a good one.
We got a mixture tonight of black and white and color. Do you prefer one or the other?
No, I think sometimes I'll shoot in black and white raw, because I'm looking, I want to see how, because my idea is I want this to be in black and white, but quite often when it comes through and then you go into post-production, sometimes like, actually I think this would be better in color. So, I'll choose at the time, and quite often I might be flicking between the color and black and white, just flicking between the two and thinking about it. I'll ask my wife, what do you think? And sometimes I might end up slightly doing some toning on a black and white image. But there's I prefer shooting in black and white or in color. It's really, what the image is saying to me at the end of it in terms of post-production, and therefore whether it turns into black and white or not. And I've had some I've been working on this week, which I've done a couple in black and whites, and I've got one coming up in colors that I know that should be in color. So it's sort of each image is I will make a decision according to how it's looking after post-production. And even then, sometimes I'm sure you're saying, Mark. Even then, sometimes you see, like you publish it and you say, and someone says like, "Oh, it'd be lovely to see this in mono," and it's like, "Well, I've tried it in mono and I didn't like it, so that's why it's in color." So,
I'm a black and white man.
Yeah.
if they never invented color film, I would have been okay for the rest of days. But I only began to shoot. We opened our studio in '85. And by '87, I was having to shoot color because I had all these brides' mums going, "Yeah, but we had our wedding photographs in black and white. Can we have them in color?"
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm a prostitute, so of course you can. And just goes from there. Anyway, hang on, I got a bit of a bone to pick with you because it says you were taking a break from shooting in 2025.
Yeah.
What prompted that decision, and what's gone wrong because you're photographing?
Well, last June, I injured my left hand. I play golf and I injured my left hand to the point where I couldn't hold a camera. It was very painful, and it took quite a few months before eventually having a cortisone injection in my wrist, which is extremely painful. So my first shoot after about 6 months last year was in October, November. And I sort of lost a bit of that sort of excitement about trying to create some new images. And then this year I've been fairly quiet up until about May, and I had a model from Australia contact me who was coming to the UK, because I have a number of models who are overseas models.
Yeah.
And she sort of wanted to do a body paint with me. So again, at Aura Studio, using the owner, Emily, who's a body painter, we did that shoot. And then there was the first image you showed, the model contacted me again and said, "I'm just thinking about maybe doing 1 or 2 little shoots, would you be interested?" So I wanted to shoot with her again. And then I've now got I've just shot 2 ballerinas in London with Richard Egan. I've got I've got two twin sister ballet dancers who are coming over to shoot. So I've grabbed half an hour, well, 4 hours of that. But I've only got 2 more shoots organised until the end of August. So after that, I might just sort of step back and have a little think about, okay, because it's a creativity thing for me. I need to feel that I'm creating something that's different. And obviously people say that it's all been done before, but quite often things are done slightly different. So, because you can argue that every image you see has probably been photographed, by hundreds of people over the years, but it's still, for me, trying to find something that's creative. I think I just ran through a phase where 3 grandchildren, other priorities as well, that things have to shuffle around in their priorities. But I'm sort of, I've got 2 or 3 shoots and it all goes quiet at the moment. So,
well, you're shooting some nice stuff, mate. That's all I can.
This
is very Yerbury-esque funny enough, isn't it? I know we mentioned them twice. We've never done a talk photography with them. And I used to be really good friends with Faye and Trevor many years ago, and they've never done a talk photography. But yeah, I mean, I love the grace of this. This is almost looks like it needs to be made out of marble.
Yeah, this is Rochelle Summers. This was at Guy's Cliff in the Midlands, which doesn't do art new shooting anymore. But there was actually a photo day with 4 models and about 4 or 5 photographers. I can't remember now. But within Guy's Cliff, there were some caves, and we went into a cave, and we were in pairs. There was a woman I was photographing with as well. And I brought some of the voile with me, and the light was just really lovely coming in through the cave entrance. And I just asked the other photographer, do you mind us sort of wafting and then let go? And then, I took a few shots, and Rochelle did an amazing pose, and just the light coming in through the cave. So this is a natural light photograph, no studio lights or anything.
Oh my God.
So out of my comfort zone. Although the shoot I did last week was all natural light, so I'm trying to push my boundaries a little bit. But just inside a cave, so a great dark background, which always helps. Just enough light coming across the body, and just enough to catch the voile being sort of floating around in that cave, and a terrific pose from a very professional model who knows exactly what to do to create great images. So this was, and again, this image again, black and white, but it's got a slight toning on it. As you can see. But
toning tends to lose a little bit of detail at times, doesn't it? Or it brings, if you sepia it almost brings too much of the shadow information back.
Yes.
And did you use the dish process as well, or have you only been digital?
No, this is digital, but again, you can control what you want to do with the image in Lightroom and Photoshop as much as you really want to. So as much as this is not really this is a color combination of some colors being added into the black and white, as against just a straight click on the sepia button, because I tend to want to sort of play around. So it's actually 2 colors. There's a sepia and another sort of warm brown orangey color. But yeah, you can lose some shadows, but dodging and burning has always been around since the year dot. But in this image, I think that the cheekbone and the shadows around the eye, it's enough for what you need to see, because you're taken through the image by the flow from coming through the body and down through the voile. So I think that sometimes if you do lose some shadow and some definition, etc., then as long as you're happy with it, or you can still, if you want, dodge and burn, or you can block it out, really. But that was taken a few years ago. Guy Cliffs, unfortunately, don't do art nude shooting anymore. You can still hire it for model photography, but not art nude. So there we go.
What has movement taught you about the kind of I was going to say the stillness of because they look porcelain, or they look marble, or they look bronzes, like we touched on at the beginning. And traditionally with dance and everything else, there feels like there's a movement ready to kind of either start or finish. They're almost in the height of the flight and things.
Yes.
many of your images are a tone. They're a they are a stillness, a very still life image. I'm not sure if I'm making sense or not with it, but what has this stillness taught you when you're trying to combine the movement element as well?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think, Mark. I mean, it always surprises me when you're asking a model to say, "Can you just move your hand and just place it on your shoulder?" That they end up sort of gripping. You know, they're in. So there's very few models I work with where I haven't had to say, "Look, just lay your hand on your don't grip it or make it look like it's, you know, tension or whatever." So it's trying to just feel like it's, you know, as you say, it's just laying there, but still has a position and a purpose. I think I do capture moments. So the previous image, you know, you've got the flowing movement of the fabric. So that indicates the movement within that image, although the model's obviously still. The fan dancer again is it's still, but you can see she's off the ground, so you know she's jumped. But trying to demonstrate that there's no exertion shown in that image, because you can see from her face that it's totally in control.
Yeah.
And I think with this model, who no longer, this was in Venice with Trevor and Faye Yerbury on a workshop, and this is an amazing model who was so skilled in terms of the delicateness of her fingers and her hands and how she positioned her body, and how she turned and moved. Faye had done the hair, you know, in a classic style, which suited the images. But again, there's just this lovely light. This is actually in a passageway where people can walk through, but we were early morning. But beautiful natural light against a strong blue vivid backdrop of the door, and a very, very pale skinned model with a darkness on each side. It's almost like pillars on each side. It just draws you straight into the model. Yeah, I try, and like with bronze, I suppose in a way, it's a good question you've asked me, because I've not really thought of it in that sort of context. But you know, bronzes are static, but they portray movement.
Yeah.
And some of my ballet, I try and do the same sort of thing, where there's movement, you can see there's movement, or she's moving because she's in the air or whatever. But at the same time, you know, it's all sharp. There's no exertion, there's no strain, or there's no stress shown in the muscles or the model.
There's a difference between bronze and like marble, for instance. I always think that marble is like the foundation of a house. It has to have a good, stable floor.
Yes.
In other words, the feet or a hand is being used to stabilize it. Whereas I always feel that a bronze, especially with dancers, it almost feels like it's about to fall over.
Yeah.
and do you understand what I mean by that? It's almost on this kind of spike,
yes,
or on a toe, or something that is just enough to support the balance before it falls over with it and things, really. And that's, I suppose, why I love bronzes of dance more than anything else, I think.
Yes.
Because it almost, like I was saying about Richard MacDonald, that his Cirque du Soleil stuff, they're almost in anguish. They're actors who can kind of flow and everything else with it and things, really. But whereas we've got here with this image specifically, it looks more like the marble kind of element. Does that make sense?
Yes, no, I understand completely. And I think, you know, again, very pale skin, very static. So yeah, I mean, but to get that pose, was you know, there was a number of poses she went through, but it's just trying to capture it where you feel, you know, the way she's got her hands gently placed against the wall, the other fingers are all delicate. And quite often with models, I was just say, just open your hand a little bit. If you're going into a pose, don't have all your hand closed, you know, have the fingers as they would be, a little bit relaxed, but still having some purpose or direction, if you like. And with Riona Neve, that model was, she, you know, was just very, very skillful, and it just shows in the image, and she's got very long legs, which helps. But yeah, you're right. I think a very pale skin quite often looks a little bit more like a marble statue.
Mm. Do you provide a lot of direction during the shoot to the models?
I tend to, I tend to I have a clear view in mind. I also quite like balanced photographs. So in terms of proportionality and I'm not OCD, but I like, symmetry to a degree. And therefore, I'll quite often a model will be in a pose, and I'll just say, can you move your left leg up a little bit more, So the direction is very much around small minor adjustments, because I'm looking through the camera and I just can see that your leg needs to be a little bit higher just to break it from the other leg or whatever. But we've looked through the sketch, we've gone through the sketches. Can you have a go at this one? So she might sit there and she's clothed. I'll get all the lights set up how I want them to be. Then we'll do a few test shots to make sure all the lights correct and it's all working. And then say, okay, let's try and get into that pose. And then I talk to the model and say, look, my camera's normally on a tripod. I'll be looking through the lens, and I might ask you to make small adjustments. Now, a lot of models, you need to say, look, 1 centimeter adjustments, not this, that, because of course I say turn a bit to the left, and it's sort of, so it's all too big. So my model, it tends to be very, very fine tuning to get exactly what I'm looking through in the camera is the image that I'm looking for. So, and it varies. Some models are quite adept at knowing just to move very slightly, and other models tend to over move. Say, no, it's too far, come back, or can you just move your left leg? And they might move their right leg. And I have to think, am I seeing her left leg or am I seeing her right leg? So I have to think about it to start with as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes no, sorry, it's my mistake. I meant the other leg,
The other left.
We have a bit of a laugh and things like that. But I know, if you like, I know what I'm looking for. And another thing people said to me was like, do you take like multiple shots when someone's jumping or moving? And the answer is no. So I only take 1 shot at a time. I don't have on continuous or high speed sync with a flash. So I've sort of got a style where I can see and take the image, and 9 times out of 10 you might have to do maybe 2 or 3 goes, but quite often I'll get it on the first hit because everything's worked perfectly fine. So when there's models in moving or jumping or whatever, I don't fire off 10 shots in 5 seconds. It's just 1 shot and then look at it. And quite often models, I say, look, what I do, my process is this. So don't, worry if I'm just do the pose and then rest. I'll have a look at the image and then, we'll go from there. And then once I've got the image I want, then to your earlier point about building off that, we'll say, okay, let's just try and work off this one now. Then I might take a few shots while she's moving through a number of poses because I'm not sure what I'm looking for. And then I'll just take some shots as she's going through different sort of poses, and hopefully I might find one there which is even better.
Very good. I've got a few more questions, but let's look at the last image of the night. So rope play.
Yeah. This is this is with the hair out, you see.
Yeah.
This is a model I've worked with probably for over 8 years now. Arida, who's an excellent model, very, very talented, very, very professional. So again, as I said to you, I like to use props, whether it's hoop. I've shot quite a few models on hoop, trapeze, rope, silk. And this one that we set up where, again, I wanted to try and get some tension by that she's having to hold herself up. So there's tension being created in her arms to actually show that. But then I want this sort of dropping of the rest of the body. So we had a few goes at trying to do this. And again, the lighting is one of my so it's a standard before two long soft boxes blocked by flags. Again, trying to get those positioned to get the right shadows across the body and to get the light balanced to enhance the muscles, the ribs. You can see, in her legs, the different tensions of the muscles in her legs and through her body. So, and the long hair, it wasn't an issue for me because it almost shows a bit of movement as if she's just dropped into that sort of pose. And her arm is obviously showing that she's holding her arm there, but it's all, for me anyway, it's almost like there's tension and she's hanging in a way.
That's beautiful. Amazing. Thank you so much, Bob. A couple of more questions. Before we get there, guys, if you want to see some more of Bob's images, then you can head over to the likes of Purple Port, of course, where you can see more of Bob's more recent work. Let me just kind of pull that up. And if you just kind of put in the purple port, and it's Bobbins, Bobbins, or if you search on Trebor images, you'll find that anyway. And from there, you can see lots of other images, of course. If you want to see some more information, or some more images, I should say, go across to Bob's Instagram account, and then you can actually see more of the work there. Some amazing, amazing photographs. And I know how hard it must have been for you to have made the selections and everything else with it. So thanks very much for sharing some amazing images tonight with us, Bob. You're a star. Let's come back to a few questions for a minute. How important is the pre-shoot communication and the concept development for you?
If it's a new model, that's quite important. So we'll make an arrangement through Purple Pulse or through Instagram or through other channels. And then I'll talk through a basis of saying, look, I'm looking at shooting, making sure people are clear, aren't nude, shapes and shadows. If the model is somebody who's a contortionist or is a ballet dancer, then I'll be saying, I want to do some shots which might involve splits and or various positions, and just to sense check the model's okay to do all of that. So there's initial communication in writing to say, this is what my plan is at this start. And then I'll quite often send the model a mood board, either of my own sketches or some photos, that I've found that almost reflect what I'm trying to do. And then we'll have various conversations. Again, if there's anything I want them to bring, ballet shoes, if you have a tutu, that would be great. Or if you've got some nice dance outfits or whatever. Then on the day, I would have sketched out, would have sit down, have a cup of tea or coffee, and just work through saying, okay, this is my plan. And then she might say, well, actually, I'd rather do those first because actually they're easier than those ones, and therefore I need a bit more time to warm up or to stretch. So we might shuffle the order according. But I tend to try and work on a plan where I've got a lighting setup for a number of shots, then I'll change my lighting setup for a number of shots. It doesn't always go that way, because if the model wants to do certain poses, I might have to sort of swap them around a little bit and not just go from one setup to another setup. I might have to flip backwards and forwards. But that's, I normally do a 4-hour shoot, which gives us plenty of time. If I think I'm looking for maybe 4 to 6 images, then there's normally plenty of time to be able to, one, be relaxed, not rushed, have breaks, warm up if the model needs to warm up, and to get things set up. You've got to change sets and things like that. So, and then we'll just sit down and go through those images, and then quite often I say, look, keep your clothes on, let's have a go, let's see how it looks, let me get the light set up, and then okay, let's go and get changed, and there's a slight sheen on the skin, unless that's going to cause a problem in terms of gripping onto a rope or a hoop. And then we just take it from there. I'll do a few shots, I'll go and show the model the shots, we'll talk about it, and then carry on through that process. So do some shots, stop, review, do some more shots, stop, review, change, whatever, and slowly work through the day. But I mean, most of the models I work with, I've shot before, so the comms are a little bit shorter because they know what to expect. Unless there's anything specific I'm looking for that's new, then they know what to expect in terms of how the shoot goes.
3 more questions. 3 more questions.
Yeah.
How do you navigate the line between fine art and sensuality or erotica?
Gosh, that's an interesting question. I have shot somewhere, even one of the images, the second image tonight. I mean, that's quite a sort of an erotic image, I guess, in terms of the one eye and the shape and the breasts and things like that. But I have shot sort of Helmut Newton style stuff in black and white. But it's never, to me, I don't like things to be overt. It's got to be subtle. Shapes and shadows, there's something there that is left to the imagination. If you're moving from just sort of fine art nude, which is a structured pose, to something that might be a bit more sort of Helmut Newton stylish, or with some clothes on. I mean, I don't think I've shot many art nude or nude photographs that are really erotic. I've shot some which are semi-clothed, which I would class as some eroticness in it, but it tends to be very subtle as against overt, because one, I'm not interested in that, and two, I don't think it doesn't do anything or say anything for me, you know. So yeah, it's you know, it's, I think the models are very clear about how I shoot and how I work, and they're very comfortable with me, you know. And sometimes I say, look, I actually did a process an image I shot of one of the models a few years ago, and I sent it to her and say, would you be okay if I put this up? And she said, well, no, I'm not too happy with that. It was black and white, but she just felt it was a little bit too revealing, and that was fine. So it's not gone anywhere, you know. It's still in the bin, if you like. So I'd never put anything up to I'd never if there was an image I took and the model says, oh no, that's, you know, by mistake it's showing too much, I'll say fine, I'll delete it, you know. So I'm not interested, I'll just delete the image there and then.
Exactly.
So
well, okay, so we're kind of being controlled by robots on Instagram and blah blah blah, and yeah, we're not going to change any of that, even Photoshop, you know. Yeah. Anyway, let's not go there. So somebody finds an image, you know, of the nude controversial or inappropriate or where it is. How do you kind of tackle those kind of things? Because it must, you know, I've gone through my career where, you know, friends and family and so on with it have basically, you know, made comment in some way. How do you go about kind of answering those kind of critics as such?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, you know, there'll always be critics for a start. So you have to accept that there'll always be people who don't like what you do, don't agree with what you do, for all sorts of reasons, and that's just the way of the world. But I tend to, my wife is someone who I sense check my images with. She's very good at finding stuff in charity shops for me in terms of dresses and things I've used in some of my clothes photography with ballet dancers. Some of the people know I do art and youth photography. Some of my people, I don't discuss it with them because I know that it wouldn't be something they'd be interested in or would have a certain view about. So I don't share that with people. So it is one of those ones, especially if you're moving into a new area or you're meeting new friends, or, you know, oh, you do photography. What sort of photography do you do? You know, and then you sort of, so, you know, I sort of say, well, I do this, I do some art and youth photography, and it's like something, oh, really, that's interesting, or oh, I can't believe you do something like that. But you get a quick sense check without doing too much that either someone's okay or someone's not okay, and I just tend to try and keep those people separate, really.
I think you floor them with your nude in a hoop image, like we got on screen here. That's what I do, and they go, "Oh my god, that's amazing," kind of thing, you know. Look, I've got one more question.
Yeah.
Question, pretty much one that I ask most. Finally, kind of, what advice would you give to someone just starting out in fine art, nude or studio or location based? What's your best tip for them?
My best tip would be to attend a well-run workshop with a reputable photographer who you can see his work in the genre that you're looking at shooting, and go along and be prepared to learn from other people. I think that's a great way to start off. And then when you get to the stage of feeling that you want to have a go with a model yourself, then to use a model who is reputable in terms of doing art nude. There's lots of models who'll do nude, but there's fewer models who can do fine art nude, and therefore review people's portfolios and then try and see whether you can arrange that in a studio, or failing that, then some group shoots are better organized than others. I'm not a great fan of group shoots, but if they are well controlled and certainly in a studio you can't really shoot over each other because the studio flash is there to drive the light. But there would be the steps I would take. Attend workshops first, and I went to plenty of workshops. I've probably been to a dozen workshops in the last 7-10 years with different people as a way of learning, because I think anyone can always learn, and then you can start to shape in terms of what's the area you want to focus on, and then work on that in regard to finding models who can do that for you and will help you, and if not failing that, then look at some group shoots which are very, very well organized, and you will get time yourself to work. That's what I'd say.
Bob, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Remember,
you.
everybody, if you'd like to see more of Bob's images, head over to his Purple Paw and at Bobbins, or head over to his Instagram account, which is Walker-Pursley. Obviously is Bob's name, but Trebor Images is at the top. And
yeah, Trebor Images is what I used, and then my name is Bob Walker-Pursley.
Perfect. Thank you very much, sir. And
Thank you very much.
I hope to be dragging you back again. I hope you've enjoyed it and things are.
Yeah, it's been great, Mark. Really appreciated the time, and thanks very much for the real challenging questions.
Pleasure. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.